It's May 17th, 2026. Iran just hit a nuclear power plant. Not a military base, not an oil tanker, a nuclear power plant. The $20 billion Barakah facility in Abu Dhabi, the only nuclear power plant in the entire Arab world, took a direct drone hit last night. A generator exploded. One reactor switched to emergency diesel power, and the IAEA is now issuing statements about grave concern. That's the UN nuclear watchdog using the phrase grave concern. Let that land for a second. This is the first time in this entire war that a nuclear facility has been deliberately targeted, and the U.S. military did not sit still. F-35As, F-16CJ Vipers, A-10s, over 100 combat aircraft are now running elevated patrols over the Strait of Hormuz as of this morning. We're going to break all of it down, because what happened in the last 12 hours just changed the trajectory of this conflict in a way that nobody is fully talking about yet. So let's build the full picture on what actually happened, because the details here matter a lot and the mainstream media is glossing right over them. 3 drones. That's what was sent. 3 drones entered UAE airspace from the western border. Not from the Gulf side, not from across the Strait of Hormuz. The western border. Think about that for a second. Iran wasn't stupid enough to fire these things directly from Iranian territory, where every US radar in the theater would have tracked them from the moment they left the ground. Instead, these drones were routed through the proxy network, Iraq, possibly through Houthi-controlled corridors in Yemen, specifically so Iran could sit back with clean hands and say, hey, we didn't do that. Classic IRGC move. They didn't invent deniability, but they've turned it into an art form. UAE air defenses, and they've got good ones. THAAD, Patriot batteries, reportedly Israeli Iron Dome systems running active right now. They killed 2 of the 3 drones clean. The third one slipped through and hit a generator on the outer perimeter of the Barakah plant. The UAE's Federal Authority for Nuclear Regulation came out immediately and said no radiation leak, no injuries, all units operating normally. IAEA confirmed the same. So from a pure safety standpoint, crisis averted. But here's the thing. IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi didn't sound relieved. He expressed, and I'm quoting directly, grave concern, and stated that military activity threatening nuclear safety is, in his words, unacceptable. When the head of the UN nuclear agency uses the word unacceptable, that's not boilerplate. That's a 5-alarm diplomatic signal. Now the obvious question, why Barakah? Why a nuclear plant? Why now, when there's a ceasefire technically on the table? The answer goes back to April, and it goes back to a place called Lavin Island. Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg both reported that UAE air forces, in secret coordination with Israeli intelligence, carried out a devastating strike on Iran's Lavin Island, one of the biggest oil refinery hubs Iran has in the entire Persian Gulf. That refinery has been dark for weeks. And Iran's own oil ministry told the New York Times this week that they are sitting about 40 days away from running completely dry on reserves. So Barakah is Iran saying, you hit our oil. We'll remind you what we can hit. It's revenge, yeah, but it's also a message. And the message is, nothing in the Gulf is off limits for us. Now here's something I guarantee you didn't see covered on CNN or Fox last night. The day before this attack, May 16th, Iranian state television ran a live broadcast where a masked IRGC commander handed a Kalashnikov rifle to a news anchor, on camera, and coached the anchor on how to aim at a UAE flag. A news anchor, with a rifle, aimed at a UAE flag. Live television. That is not propaganda. Propaganda tries to convince you of something. What you're watching there is psychological mobilization. Iran is preparing its own population, mentally, emotionally, for a long and ugly war. When a regime puts guns on TV news, the ceasefire is already a fiction. Okay, so let's talk about what the US military actually did in response, because this is where it gets really interesting. Within hours of the Barakah strike, CENTCOM escalated its combat air patrol posture over the Strait of Hormuz. And when I say escalated, I mean the full package is now in the air. F-16CJ Vipers, That's the dedicated hunter-killer platform for enemy air defense systems. F-35As, A-10 Warthogs, F-15Es, F/A-18 Super Hornets, EA-18 Growler electronic warfare jets. Over 100 aircraft total, all concentrated in theater right now. And underneath all of that, you've got 15,000 U.S. service members running Operation Project Freedom. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper said it plainly when he briefed Congress. We have an enormous amount of capability and firepower concentrated in and around the strait. That's a four-star admiral under oath. That's not a press release. That's the actual threat assessment coming from the guy running the operation. Now here's the economic picture, and this part is genuinely brutal for Iran. Every Shahed 136 drone Iran fires costs them about $25,000 to build. Pretty cheap, right? But every Patriot missile the UAE fires to shoot it down costs somewhere between $1 and $4 million. Iran's strategy is to flood the zone with cheap weapons and drain the expensive stockpiles of its enemies. They've been running this playbook. Except, Iran's oil is dying. Their own oil ministry is saying 40 days. The U.S. naval blockade has been in place since April 13th. Over 70 tankers, 166 million barrels of Iranian oil, sitting frozen, going nowhere. The revenue that Iran uses to pay IRGC officers, fund proxy militias, and keep the mullah class happy and in power, that money is gone. And then there's this. On May 1st, almost zero coverage in Western media. The UAE quietly walked out of OPEC. Just left. No negotiation, no drama. Gone. UAE is now operating its own independent energy policy, fully aligned with the U.S. and Western military partners. That is a massive geopolitical move that tells you everything about where Abu Dhabi thinks this is going. Israel is now visibly in the picture too. Two sources confirmed to the Associated Press, one of them an active Israeli military officer, that Israel and the U.S. are in active consultations about resuming strikes on Iran, and Prime Minister Netanyahu told his cabinet directly, "Our eyes are also open and we are prepared for any scenario." That's not Netanyahu doing a press conference. That's him sending a signal to Tehran through a cabinet room he knows is being watched. The F-16CJ Viper is the platform I'd be watching right now. Its whole job is SEAD, suppression of enemy air defenses. It goes in first, it hunts radar, it clears the path. If those jets are flying elevated patrol hours right now, somebody is building a targeting package. Here's where we land on this. Iran just did something no one has done in this entire conflict. They hit a nuclear facility. First time. In a war that's already produced thousands of drone strikes, naval engagements, a floating armory seizure, and a near-nuclear incident at Bushehr. This is still a first. The IAEA is alarmed. The U.S. is repositioning. Israel is signaling. And the ceasefire that was already on life support? It just flatlined on a generator in the Abu Dhabi desert at 3 in the morning. Iran keeps saying the Strait of Hormuz is their nuclear weapon. But last night they showed the world they're willing to get a lot closer to the real thing than anybody was comfortable with. The question on the table right now isn't whether the U.S. responds. It's what that response looks like. And whether it stays surgical or whether the next 72 hours turn this into something nobody can walk back from.